Chris, I want to turn to you first. You wrote this week that you would favor, as a conservative, banning bump stocks. Bump stocks is an add-on to a semi-automatic weapon that allows that weapon to be fired essentially like a machine gun. So why do you favor that, and why don't you favor going further than that?
Well, of course, in the wake of any type of shooting like this, we always see people come out and saying, we have to do something. And, you have kind of your gun control crowd that has a whole list of things that they want to do. And you have your NRA conservative crowd who says, well, in most of these cases, there's really nothing we can do. In this case, this actually seems like something we can do. The shooter, from what's been reported, had a bump stock, which is a stock that you add to a gun to essentially make it an automatic rifle. Now, people always use scary terms like semi-automatic and automatic. Semi-automatic essentially means you press the trigger once and it shoots once. And automatic is essentially a machine gun. Now, automatic rifles have been regulated heavily since 1936. They're virtually impossible to own since 1986. So what we have now is a piece that can be sold legally for like $50 online that you can buy to essentially take a semi-automatic rifle and turn it into an automatic rifle, which are, of course, banned.
So you'd be okay with that, Chris, but do you favor doing anything else, or do you think that's enough? And I want to get James in here.
I mean, as is the case, what could we do? We always have a list of things, what we can do, what we can't. Background checks. Well, the shooter passed background checks to get his weapons. Everybody talks about the influence of the NRA, but you have all these misleading statistics out there about how influential the NRA is. They're influential because they have millions of members that believe in what they say. So, I think bump stocks is something that we can definitely do, and Congress is even talking about it. Republicans in Congress are talking about it, but we're really limited as far as the things that we can do that would stop, horrible shooting like this. And
we have the Second Amendment, James, that limits what we can do too. Now, you're a gun owner.
Yes.
You are a card-carrying member of the concealed carry group here. But you have some different views on this. So what do you think?
Well, I do agree with Chris on the bump stocks. We do need to get that done. I mean, you could just go online and find them anywhere. And not only with long guns, you could do them with short guns too. And that's really dangerous, where you turn your gun into like a Tommy gun, essentially. One thing that I think we need to do too is go after silencers. That should be something that we should go after, and I don't think silencers should be permitted. I mean, just imagine if the shooter would have had a silencer. He could have just taken out people. People would have just been dropping left and right, and nobody would have known where it came from. He could have took out more than 500 people.
So there's a bill that was coming up potentially in Congress this week, I think, and it sounds like now, from what I'm reading, that it's not going to come. Chris, let me take it back to you real quick. I don't think you agree with banning silencers. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, there's different reports on what silencers or suppressors, as they're technically called, actually do. In the case of long rifles like this, apparently they reduce the sound to the sound of a jackhammer. So it's not like on TV where you see somebody screw on a silencer and nobody can tell they're shooting. It's still pretty loud, and they burn up pretty quickly on a long rifle. Congress has said there was going to be a bill to allow greater access to silencers, and it sounds like now that that's not going to be the case. I think that's probably a political decision on their part, in the wake of this tragedy.
But he's talking in this specific case where it was a long gun. This guy could have easily put a silencer on a short gun and just been a whole lot closer and taken out a lot more people.
All right, so silencers, you'd be in favor of that. What else would you favor?
I just don't understand, and I had this conversation with Chris offline, how the President of the United States could issue a ban against a country for having people with beards or whatever coming in. We know who those people are. Yeah. And we could issue a travel ban. Yeah. We could issue a travel ban, but a guy could purchase 33 guns in less than a year, and a rich white guy could purchase 33 guns in less than a year, and nobody bats an eye. How is that possible? How is he not watched by anyone when you could purchase that many guns in less than a year? It's just, to me, that makes no sense. I think if you purchase that many guns in a year, some kind of red flag should go up.
So you'd have some kind of
limit.
And
the study just came out where it just mentions that only.
What about the Second Amendment? How can you do that?
But listen to this, Dave. 3% of Americans own like half of the firearms in the United States. So, I mean, we know who owns the guns, and it's not always, the story a turn to make it seem like it's only people of color who are going around doing all this stuff. But who are the real terrorists here? That's what we should be asking the question.
Okay.
of.
Chris, should we have some kind of limit either in quantity of guns that you can buy or some other way that we sort of limit the number of guns? The U.S. has more guns than the rest of the world, as I understand it. So there's a lot of guns out there. Well, Chris,
Right.
what do you think?
Yeah, well, there are 300 million guns in America right now. So, the Second Amendment people would argue that when you start putting limits on purchasing guns, that it's only going to be the bad guys that end up having the guns and not the legal, law-abiding citizens. As far as the Second Amendment, James talked about, the gun people would say, well, there's also the First Amendment. So, why would you not limit how much people can say? Why would you not limit speech? And things like that. So, they're both amendments and they both have the same legal weight. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that I think it's the wrong message to say that just throw up your hands and say that there's nothing we can do. The bump stocks is one thing. If we want to expand the crimes that prohibit someone from, if they've committed them, prohibit them from owning a firearm. I think that's a Hillary Clinton proposal. I think that's something we could look into too. But I think they should be grounded in whether they would actually make any real difference.
All right. Chris, stay with us for a minute. James, last word.
Last word. I don't think the Second Amendment, I don't think our forefathers anticipated or wanted people to have these types of weapons just mowing down 500 people at a concert. I think more needs to be done. And if we think that this is going to be the last time that this happens, we're insane.